Hey folks, Dr. Atkinson here. Now that we have reviewed a little bit and cleared the cobwebs from the summer away to some extent, we're going to start talking about something new, and that something new is called mode mixture. If you want to play along in your book, this is in chapter 21 in the textbook. Chapter 21 entitled Mode Mixture and the Neapolitan Sixth Chord. We'll get to the Neapolitan later. But for right now, we'll focus on this thing called mode mixture. So what is mode mixture? Well, basically, all mode mixture is taking a chord from another mode and using it in whatever mode you're in now. And by modes, we mean primarily just major and minor. So in this case, is taking, let's say you're in a major key, and you borrow a chord you might find in a minor key. So something as simple as using a minor 4 chord in a major key would be as an example of mode mixture. Now there are a couple of very classic examples of this. If you're in a minor key, and especially this happens a lot in the Baroque, in the early classical period as well, but you're in a minor key and you get all the way to the end of the piece and all of a sudden you end on a major tonic instead of a minor tonic. We have a name for that called a Picardy third, and that's probably the most common instance of mode mixture in a minor key. But there are some other examples that we'll come across as we explore this topic. The textbook will begin by talking about how we achieve these modal mixtures in music. The most common thing we're going to find is that a major key will be borrowing chords from the minor key. The obvious exception being the Picardy third, which I already mentioned. So let's start by talking about one of the more common things we'll see, and that's taking scale degree 6 in a major key and lowering it by a half step. We'll call that just flat 6 for short, even if we're in a key where 6 is sharp and we're making it natural. Instead of saying lowered 6, we'll just say flat 6. Or we could say lay instead of law. What that will give us are 4 new harmonies that we're borrowing from minor. Those would be any of the harmonies that involve scale degree 6. Those would be the 2 chord, so we have a 2 diminished chord, or 2 diminished 6 more than likely. We could have 2 half diminished 7, if we're going to take the 7th chord. We could have a 4 chord, a minor 4 chord, like I mentioned before, and then you could also have now a 7 fully diminished 7th chord. That, by the way, is probably the most frequent chord that will be borrowed from a minor key, is taking the 7 half diminished 7 chord that you normally get in major, and then lowering the 7th by a half step, which happens to be scale degree 6, giving you the fully diminished 7th chord. Here's an example of that. Okay, this is a short little excerpt from a song by Schubert called the Erlkönig. You might be familiar with this. If not, you should be because it's really cool. But here is what this little clip sounds like.
Einem Kind, hat den Knaben wohl in dem Arm, fasst ihn sicher.
Overall key for this piece is G minor, but for this brief moment we're in the relative major. So let's think of this as if it was in B flat major. Look closely though at measure 25 and you'll see an accidental floating around in there. If you suss out all the notes there, it's a little cramped, but you see a G flat. And so if you think for a minute, well, what is G in the key of B? Well, it's scale degree 6. So in this case, it's flat scale degree 6 with that G flat. And if you notice the harmony that's built on that, you've got A, C, E flat, and G flat. That gives us our fully diminished 7th chord, as opposed to just the half diminished 7th chord. So like I said, this is the most common chord you're going to get via mode mixture, is having this fully diminished 7th chord in place of a half diminished 7th chord. But there are others, and most of them tend to involve scale degree 6. We'll see more as we go forward, but this is just a little brief introduction into the world of modal mixture. Here is that example again so you can hear it.
Einem Kind, hat den Knaben wohl in dem Arm,